Did you know there's one single relationship that governs how much abundance, connection, magic, and synchronicity you get to experience? And it's not your sweetie, your parents, or even your kids. If you want to know how to unlock spiritual awakening, not to mention a much better experience of life, you need to cultivate this. In this episode, we talk about what this unexpected relationship is, why it's so important, and how to deepen it. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part. The group frequency calibration associated with this episode is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. If you like this episode, please help us out by hitting the like and the subscribe button. It helps us get our content to more people like you. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing your relationship with the One.
Okay, so you're talking about a relationship with the One.
Mm-hmm.
So are we talking about like my soulmate?
Yeah.
Like my relationship with the One man, is that? Yeah. Or are we talking about something completely different?
Well, from my perspective, we're talking about something completely different. So a lot of people will think about the One as if they're talking about their partner. But what I'm talking about is the greater One. So meaning, and a lot of people will ask me this question because they're like, what do you mean by the One? Like, what is that? So actually, to me, there's many names for this.
I was going to say.
Very high vibrating consciousness, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it's, a lot of people will call it source, or they'll call it the divine, or they'll call it pure source, or they'll call it the oneness. Some people might even call it God, depending if you're religious or not. But that's what I'm talking about. It's that very highly vibrating consciousness from which everything comes or derives, and then to which everything returns.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about a relationship with the One, you're saying that we have a relationship with this highly vibrating consciousness.
Yes. Yes. And we always do. It's just that we're often not aware of it.
Okay. So when you're talking about your work and working with the relationship with the One, what does that mean for us?
Yeah. So it's funny, because a lot of people, when they seek spirituality or they seek something different, they think they're looking for spiritual awakening, or they think that they're trying to accelerate their manifestation, or they think whatever they think.
Yeah.
And to me, all that stuff that we seek, connection, feeling fulfilled and whole, all of that stuff has to do with your relationship with the One and your awareness of it, your clarity of your awareness of that connection that is always there, that's immutable, that has always been there, that we often forget.
So where is the relationship with the One? Like, where is the One? How do, because it's kind of like the One, I've always been taught it's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that you can't have a connection with.
Yeah,
because
that's right.
It's way too highly vibrating, or it's way too pure, or, you're not godly enough.
Or not perfect enough.
Or not perfect enough.
Yeah.
So where and how do I get a relationship with the One?
How do I get snuggy with the One?
Direct dial, please.
Yeah. So the One is everywhere and everything. So it's part of you. So meaning, if you think about it, you're alive. Mm-hmm. And so what animates you, the thing that animates you, that gives you life, is the One. And the thing is, we all think, as you said, that One is outside of us. A lot of people who seek spiritual awakening, and I was one of these people too, you're like, you're always seeking to try and be more perfect, be clearer, be brighter, do the practices, do the mantra, do the whatever and the whatnot. And at some point, maybe, just maybe, you'll be clear enough or perfect enough that you can attain the One, right? Or you think that whatever that means. I don't think any of us really know what that means, know? But the thing is, it runs through you. It is you. It's part of you. Now, I just want to make it really, really clear that I did not say that you are God. Because a lot of people will be like, did you say that you are God? I did not say that. I said that the divine is within you, that it animates you, that it's intrinsically part of you, and you are also human. So a lot of us have this misunderstanding that it's outside of us. But what we don't realize is that we just have to cultivate our awareness by releasing our distortion to be aware of the relationship or our connection that's inherent within us to the One. It already exists within us. We're just not aware of it. Hi guys, I hope you're loving our conversation. Our discussions are designed to empower you to transform your life and the lives of the people around you.
So please hit the subscribe button because it helps us to expand our reach and to empower more people. Okay, let's get back to it.
And I'd love to come back to your point there before I forget, that to be able to become aware of that relationship doesn't require for us to sacrifice ourselves or martyr ourselves or to be in, what do you call it, when you earn points? That somehow if you do that, you'll earn points and now you can have that awareness or that connection.
Yeah.
But we already have it, is what you're really saying.
Yes, and you don't have to. It's funny because a lot of people will say, I need to be better in order to have it in some way, which is what you're saying.
Yes.
You're saying, I think, from what I understood was that you have to do something in order to be deserving of it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly, deserving. That's the word I couldn't get.
But it has nothing to do with deserving. Yeah. It has to do with your awareness of it. And the thing is, we have so much distortion around it. I mentioned that just a little bit ago. But we have a lot of distortion where we think that we're not worthy of it. A lot of us have distortion around from our lineages and from our religions and so on, which tell us that we're not worthy of it, and that we're sinful, or that we're embodied and therefore inherently too dense or too dirty, and so therefore we can never achieve it. When ironically, it is what animates us. It creates us. It's what gives us life. Like we wouldn't exist without it.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, in terms of being aware of your relationship with the one, you have to clear a lot of the distortion that keeps you from thinking that it is a part of you. You know, that you have to be better.
Yeah, all those ones. The ones that you think you've got to do all these things, a big list of things before you'll be accepted.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing that I wanted to mention too is that something you mentioned has to do with deserving, and also it has to do with like feeling like there's something inherently wrong with you. To me, those are slightly different.
Yeah.
But if it, there's one thing, it's like I'm not deserving of it. But if you inherently feel like there's something wrong with you, that there's something lacking, that there's something like, you know what I mean? It makes it really difficult to feel like you're ever going to have that, or that you're even worthy of having it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, that is something that is what we're changing right now in terms of consciousness rising.
Yeah.
We're getting to the point where we're starting to have the opportunity to realize it's not about deserving. And if you can just clear these distortion patterns, there's nothing wrong with you. So it's not like the distortion patterns make you worse. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're damaged and then they make you worse. It's
and
just
that your connection's less.
Exactly.
Right.
It's just that they muddy your awareness. That's really all they are.
So we're talking about the awareness of it.
Yes.
Again, the message is you already have this connection.
Yes.
But your awareness of it is what's being muddied by the distortions.
Yes.
Right. So when you say, like you've done 2 workshops on this.
Yeah.
So what's the work? You're sitting there, we're in this group with you, or we're listening to the product, and what's happening? Like, are you somehow helping us become aware of that connection?
Yeah.
Like, why do I want
the
relationship with the one?
So I'm going to back up out of that just a little bit. So the thing is, a lot of people will feel lonely these days. They'll feel incomplete. Yeah. They'll feel like they need to consume stuff to feel whole, or they need to achieve a lot to feel whole, or that they're somehow like lost and alone and like separate, disconnected, like all that stuff which makes us feel not good.
Yeah.
When you become more aware of your relationship with the one, that stuff resolves, because that's when you start to feel like, oh, I am whole and complete. I don't need to buy all this stuff. I mean, it's lovely to experience it. Please know, I'm not saying you should be an ascetic living on a mountaintop and not own anything. Okay? I'm not saying that. But it's like, that stuff is a wonderful pleasure, but that's not the end all be all, because ultimately you feel whole and complete. You also are aware that you are not alone, that you are deeply connected, and that it's always been that way. And so, to your point, when we're sitting in these 2 workshops doing this work, what we're releasing is the distortion patterns that keep you from feeling that way, of that connection, that wholeness, that completion, that in the first one we did the beloved state, the feeling that you are beloved exactly as you are, because you are. But we often don't feel like we are, right? And so your relationship with the one, when you start to clarify it, it starts to change everything in terms of how you feel, in terms of how connected you feel, because you're always connected, like we just talked about.
Yeah.
But we feel like we're disconnected.
Yes.
But when you start to clarify that relationship, you start to realize at like increasing depths how interwoven you are with this incredible consciousness, and that it's part of you and you are part of it.
Right.
You know, and so all of that starts to shift in terms of, you know, it diminishes your fear extraordinarily, because when you feel like you're part of that oneness, I mean, there's nothing that you can be afraid of, because it's like you're ultimately completely held and interwoven with this incredible force.
Right.
So it's a really big deal.
And so that is what this work is around when you're doing these workshops. In relationship with the one and two, it's about clearing away the distortions so that I like to say, so that we can remember.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Remember. But remember that connection. And then at the same time, I hate to use the word, but kind of expand a little bit more into that. It's like one thing to be aware of it, but it's another to, like you say, to be in relationship with it, right?
Yeah.
And then it becomes like it's a two-way thing then.
Yes.
Rather than this thing out there that you can never have a conversation with.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, it's like you expand into it. You recognize your interwovenness with it. You and when you start to feel that, to me, that is like the glory of it. Because first of all, it's infinite. And secondly, it's extremely, to me, like buoyant and very like heart-filled. And you recognize also, at least that's what we did in relationship with one part 2 anyway, is you recognize, because you're intrinsically interwoven with it, that you create everything with it. You know, you are co-creating your reality. And it's an idea that's like tossed around a lot, you know, like you co-create your reality. But with this, you actually feel it. Like you start to actually recognize and understand and be aware of and know and like viscerally feel that as part of that magnificent force that creates everything, you are in this very intimate relationship with it. And it like fuels your own co-creativity.
Who wouldn't want that?
I know, right? Yeah.
So what I've found because I'm human, so I have good days and bad days, right? There are days where I'm really feeling that intimacy with this life force, that is running through every cell of my body. Yeah. And I literally feel like I am floating because I'm being held. Yeah. And then the magic that happens, I always call it magic. Because, for me it is. And if you were using your brain and logic, you'd probably see creation, manifestation. Yeah. Because I'll be sitting there, I'm like, I really would really like to have this. And within an hour, boom, somebody comes in. Oh, there it is. It's almost like this life force saying, I am here. Yeah. 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 What else?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. I mean, from my experience anyway, as you link more and more into your connection with the one, right? Because it's like we said, always there. Remember, the one is that consciousness that creates everything. And so when you recognize how intimately like woven we are with it, then and everything is one. I know it's like an idea, again, another one that's tossed around a lot, like we are one, right? And how often have we even heard songs about this? But if you're intimately connected with the one, things like that magic starts to happen because things start to come into your life, like just even with like barely thinking about something. Yeah. Like show up for you because you're in this magical dance with the one, which is infinite, and you can create anything. Again, it's that interweaving of your relationship with the one, recognizing you're co-creating with it. So things appear for you literally out of nowhere. And you can't really logically deduce how they show up, but here they are in sort of like a surprising way, in a way that you would never have been like, oh, I kind of wish I had this and I wish it would show up like that. It shows up in these ways that really are surprising. And the more you cultivate your relationship with the one, the faster the speed. That's what I've noticed. Yeah. Because you're not attached to it. Yeah. What's wonderful about, we're talking about these things linearly, like this is a relationship with the one, this is manifestation, this is something else. It's all interwoven. Yeah. It's not that linear. That's not how things on frequency level work. Everything is interwoven. So the amazing thing is that your speed of manifestation becomes even more like clear, not just clear in terms of speed, but fast, because as you cultivate your relationship with the one, you start to become more and more neutral to what happens.
I was just going to say, you don't have those same,
you're
what
not
you
as
think
attached.
are needs as well. Like
exactly.
I must have, and I can only have, and this is, low.
Yeah.
Because this relationship feels so nurturing.
Yeah.
Right? That's my experience. I'm sure everybody else has a different one, but it feels so nurturing. There, it's like when you get food and it's really satiating. You never have any cravings.
Yeah.
Well, it's like that for me. Like it feels so nurturing and wholesome and heartfelt that I really don't want anything else.
Yeah, exactly. You're full.
Yeah.
You're full, because that's the thing about the relationship with the one when it's really clear. It's like, if you could have access to everything and you knew that you were held and you knew you were beloved, what would you really need?
Right.
You don't really need much.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that these things that you'd like to experience because it would be fun, but then you kind of forget about, you know what I mean? It's not like you're super attached to it. You're like, I must have this kind of whatever it is. You don't have that because it doesn't have the same meaning anymore. It doesn't have the same kind of attachment that we have with it. And so because it doesn't have meaning, like it means something about you and your ability and whether or not you're successful and whether or not you're abundant and whether or not you're whatever and whatnot, because none of that matters as much anymore, or very little at all, your attachment's very low and you're in this more neutral state that you and I have talked about. And if you don't know what we're talking about, then go watch the episode on neutrality. When you're in that state, it really is wonderful, because then because you're kind of like this open slate for what can be created in the most magical way, and you're not attached to how it shows up. So it can become very fast, because you're not in that state of attachment. So I think, man, when you cultivate the relationship with the one, that's to me when like all that magic starts to come in. Yeah. So it could be something as meeting the love of your life, which is like a really big thing that a lot of people want to manifest. Or it could be something as simple as, so let's just take, for example, like I love these dresses from this designer in New York.
So does just about every client that sees you in them,
And she's amazing. Her name's Janice Huminska. And anyway, so sometimes what I do is, because I'm impatiently waiting for the next thing that she's going to launch, is I'll look sometimes on secondhand clothing sites to see if anyone is selling one of her precious dresses that I love so much. So anyway, I wasn't thinking about it. I was in the middle of work one day, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I need to check Poshmark or something like this. And I was like, this is really random because I'm in the middle of my workday. So I go there and I find this dress exactly my size for like a super huge, amazing price. It was like, I don't know, some really unbelievable steal, like under $20 or something like this, which I bought immediately. But it was kind of funny because it wasn't like I was really thinking about it. It wasn't like I was really trying to have anything happen. But I had just thought, like literally that morning, like, oh, it'd be nice to have like a new one, because as women, like we like different styles, whatever. And I'm like, I really wish, I'd literally thought to myself this morning, I really wish she would create something in purple. Because I really love purple, and she doesn't create enough of them. And literally, this dress is purple. It's like my size. It's like $20. I was like, wow!
You created manifestation.
So things like this can happen. So that's just like a silly little example. But my point is, it wasn't like I was sitting there like plotting to have this like exact dress in this exact color with this exact fit. It just came in. And so the thing is about clarifying your relationship with the one is, not only do you start to be able to cultivate all these things we're talking about, including manifestation, but you fall into this really beautiful flow with time. And you learn to trust more when you get like a little nudge of like, hey, maybe do this. Because like literally, I'm in my work day. I'm not thinking about like purchasing all the time. But it nudged me a couple times. So I was just like, okay, all right, fine, whatever. I'll just look. But you become more able to trust in this greater thing that makes no sense logically. But you're able to be in that flow and to see where it would take you. And then you also have this wonderful, at least in my experience, ability to recognize that everything really truly is happening for you. Like even the things that are hard or like messy or seem really challenging, there's a part of you that knows, like even, in relationship or things that show up at work or whatever is showing up, that you're like, there's some part of you that has that trust or that knowingness that this is here for you to grow from, even though it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't, for me, I've found when I'm truly aware of this connection, this relationship that I have with pure source or the one, it doesn't feel so scary.
Yeah.
It just becomes it's a little game. Let's see if I can do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying I don't have a human side. There is a human side that goes, but then the other side's like, ha!
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It's just so much bigger.
Yeah, exactly. The perspective is so much bigger. So to answer your question, like that you asked, I don't know how long ago now. I mean, why do you want to cultivate your relationship with the one? Because it is the most important relationship that changes everything in terms of how you relate to everything else, including yourself. So to me, if you want to shift anything in your life, this is the place to look first. And that's what the basis of frequency work is. As you clear your distortion patterns, whether you're thinking, I want to clarify my relationship with the one or not, that is what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty spectacular thing.
It happens just by a nice accident, but it's a profound moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. So what will you do with us in the GFC?
Yeah, so this GFC is going to be fun, at least in my opinion, because it has to do with starting to help you to clarify your relationship with the one. And, a lot of people who are listening are at different levels of frequency resonance, have done different levels of work. Some of you are brand new. Some of you have been, doing this work for a while. And it doesn't really matter how much or how little experience you have with doing frequency work. This GFC will help you to start to release those distortion patterns, which really can keep you from experiencing your relationship with the one.
Let's do it!
So for those of you who'd like to start to clarify your relationship with the one, I strongly recommend listening to the group frequency calibration meditation associated with this episode. And if you know somebody who could use help with this, please share this video with them.
We're about to start the group frequency calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear on the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.